What's up, YouTube? So, we got an update. It's not a great update, but I feel like you guys can definitely learn a thing or two from my mistakes and some of the things I overlooked. So, what is this tank that you're looking at right now? This is a 2.4 gallon tank, and in it is the only surviving organisms from my 60 gallon tank. So what happened? First, we're gonna go into that. Basically, I was out of town for a couple days, left my apartment in the hands of one of my buddies. The AC died, and my apartment got about 100 degrees. So, luckily, my cats were all fine. I managed to get home quick enough, evacuate them, and the tank was kind of an afterthought, to be honest with you. And I ended up losing everything. The only fish that survived was, in the end, was a Talbot's damsel, who I ended up giving to a fish store. So, what happened exactly? Why did everything die? Well, obviously there was the heat issue. The tank got way too hot, and that's how I lost all the coral, most of the fish. But what happened after that, and the thing that I think you guys can learn a thing or two from, that I wish I had thought about, is when you have a mass disaster like that, whether it's heat related or anything like that. If you have a auto top off that goes haywire, or anything like that, where you have a lot of die off, you're gonna experience an ammonia spike more than likely, which can kill off the remaining animals. So that was the reality for me. Unfortunately, that's how I lost my moray. By the time I got to the apartment, fixed the temperature issue, I was relieved. I thought that, okay, I lost almost everything, but at least the moray and two of the fish had survived. But unfortunately, that was not the case, and the ammonia spike did end up killing my moray and the surviving stipple clingfish. The damsel did survive, thank God, but like I said, I gave him to a fish store because I downsized, obviously. And now let's look at the tank real quick. There it is as it stands now, just pretty much completely empty. I don't know why it's not focusing. Yeah, no idea why it's not focusing, guys, but yeah, I just left a little bit of water in there just for any surviving snails or whatever that pop up. There you go. And I'm kind of picking him out. And the reason I seem a little bit cavalier about the entire situation is due to the fact it's happened about a month and a half, 2 months ago. So this is just, it's definitely, it was upsetting, and it still is upsetting, but I've kind of moved past it, and I've learned from my mistakes, and I'm going to do better in the future. Now, what is the future of my whole reefing thing? Well, I'll get to that in a second, but first, let's look at this tank here. Like I said, this is 2.4 rimless deep blue tank, or deep blue professional, whatever you want to call it. The light is I think they call it a Waypoint, yeah, Waypoint LED. It's actually for planted tanks. This was originally a beta tank. The beta unfortunately passed away, and I have since turned this into this own little kind of macroalgae refugium, but it's not really, can't really consider it a refugium because it's not connected to another system. So basically, this is just a simple tank. Light, this little Walmart submersible filter, and that's it. The substrate is actually Ecosystem's Miracle Mud. There's no sand in there, it's just the Miracle Mud. It was about $30, I believe, and I've always wanted to try it out. I've been hearing different things, and I never wanted to try it with a larger system because it's so expensive to buy enough to make any kind of difference. So I figured for a tank this small, why not give it a shot and see how it does. So far I like it. I mean, obviously the tank hasn't been set up long enough to see real long-term results. There's nothing in here that's too fragile, so it's hard to see if it's making any kind of difference. But anyway, so that's pretty much the equipment side of it. There's some miscellaneous shells and stuff from the 60 gallon. All the live rocks in this container over here for the most part. Some of it's still in the sump. I'm going to sell off most of it. Some of the cooler pieces I'm going to keep for systems in the future, but this is the tank. This is what I'm rolling with right now. This really simple tank. I keep a gallon of RODI water on the floor that I top off the tank with. I don't do water changes, nothing like that. I don't plan to. It just has this Chaetomorpha clump that survived everything. These snails you see, like the dwarf Cirrus snails, most of those survived. The Nacerius snails, as well as this like miscellaneous hitchhiking snail from the live rock. Also, the last remaining survivor was this common or spiny sea star from the Caribbean. Guys, this is definitely the ideal reef starfish in my experience. A lot of people are very cautious when it comes to adding starfish to the tanks. They typically stick to either the Phromias or the Lynceus. The problem with those guys is they are a lot more fragile. They're beautiful animals, but and they are typically reef safe, but there's a lot of issues with them as far as fluctuations in tank parameters, and you can't really expose them to the air. Issues like that. They don't typically ship well. Those are a lot of the problems faced with people that try those types of starfish. And I did try a red Phromia at one point, and he didn't last too long. In my 120, I believe I tried the guy in. But this guy survived everything. He survived the well over 100 degrees the tank got for at least a day and a half, as well as the ammonia spike, as well as me shutting everything off in that tank and having no kind of circulation or anything like that. The lights were off. He survived all that as well, and survived being relocated to this tiny little tank here. So can't recommend them enough. Reef safe in my experience. They do come in different colors. They don't have to be this sort of like, dark brown with white spots. He's got a beautiful orange underbelly, but they do have different colors. So if you guys want to try it, you can get them from kpaquatics.com. They sell, I think, for the smaller ones for like $7 or $8, and hardy as hell. They don't get very large. They get about the same size as a typical red Phromia, at least as far as I know. And the people that have actually attempted them in their reef tanks have, from what I've read, all had good experiences. So highly recommend them. I got mine for $15 from one of my local fish stores, but I would definitely stick with KP Aquatics unless you're, because I've never seen them offered locally ever, and I figured, why not give it a shot? And I can't. I'm definitely glad I did. There's one of them serious snails climbing in the glass. And just today, I picked up this little $5 peppermint shrimp and some Xenia over here, which was, you guys can maybe tell, not really. It was pulsing earlier. As soon as I added the tank, it started pulsing. It was interesting because it wasn't pulsing at the store at all. But yeah, just some easy, simple, hardy animals to throw into activity and interest and everything like that. So for the next at least 6 months, I'm going to be just running this tank and keeping it as simple. I'm at a point now where my schedule doesn't allow for large tanks with a whole bunch of fish that I got to feed, and certainly not fish with high metabolisms that I have to feed more than once a day. So this is what I'm sticking with. I'm not going to be adding any fish to this tank. Maybe a neon goby, possibly if I ever get bored of this tank and I want to throw something in there. But more than likely, I'm just going to stick with these animals and then add corals and feather dusters and all kinds of stuff, little things like that, here and there. Maybe I'll get a blood shrimp or something, but this is pretty much it. It's simple. I'm enjoying it. It's relaxing. I like getting up close and personal with these animals that are typically overlooked in the average reef tank that's filled with SPS and big tangs swimming around, and so it's kind of fun, being able to zero in on these guys and see what their kind of day-to-day looks like up close and personal. So anyways, guys, what can you learn from my mistake? Well, if you have some kind of disaster in your tank, don't just deal with that and throw in the towel and then hope everything else works out, because more than likely you will face an ammonia spike, and at that point you really will lose everything. So yeah, keep that in mind, guys. Be cautious. Don't forget to cross your T's and dot your I's, because if you don't, it can come back to bite you. Tanks are all about consistency, patience, and just being able to monitor things properly so that you don't end up facing something like I did. So anyways, guys, as far as what's in the future, besides this tank, my next tank is probably going to be a 125, and what's interesting about that tank, for you guys to stay tuned for, is it's kind of going to be an experimental tank. It's not going to be plumbed. I actually busted one of my pipes on my, sorry about that, guys, I got a phone call. Anyways, yeah, so the next tank's going to be, it's not going to be plumbed. It's going to be extremely simple. It's going to be planted, if you can call it planted. It's algae, but whatever. It's essentially going to be 125 gallons of decorative macroalgae and prolific soft corals. The reason for that is I want to keep it simple. For me, I don't really, let's put it this way, I'm more than likely never going to end up with a SPS dominated tank. It doesn't interest me. I've seen so many people, and that's great if you have the time for that. They're beautiful systems and they're really impressive and everything if you can handle it, but so many people I see throwing in the towel and giving up the hobby altogether because they have some horrible disaster that wipes out their entire SPS collection, and there's just too much involved with that. So I'm a lazy reefer. I mean, I'm not gonna ever put animals in the position where their health is compromised, for my sake. But I just like simple tanks, with simple animals. I like them to be disorganized, kind of like what you see here, mud and algae and all that. So it all comes down to what keeps your interest, what makes you happy, what keeps you excited to be in the hobby. And for me, though, that's my kind. I'm sure plenty of people would look at a tank and see mud and 10K lighting and algae growing everywhere and snails and stuff and think it's looks like an ugly sump or something. But for me, that's what I like. So a 125 is definitely going to be different than anything you've probably ever seen before. Miracle Mud's going to be included if this holds up and if I like it, if I'm impressed by it. Like I said, macroalgae, soft corals, flame angel, paraperculas, maybe a little school of Allen's damsels, and then the showpiece fish will be a yellow long-nosed butterfly fish, which is my favorite species. And yeah, real simple. A couple of my favorite fish, really brightly colored fish, and easy corals, algae, kind of let the thing roll, auto top off, all that. So I want it to be really hands off, feed the fish and then keep an eye on everything else, and that'll pretty much be the extent of my involvement with that tank. So yeah, guys, stay tuned. I'll be trying to post more. I'm going to be trying to do interviews with aquaculture facilities and stuff like that. So, like I said, stay tuned, and leave a comment if you have any comments, questions, advice, anything like that. Feel free to let me know. And yeah, guys, I hope you guys are having better luck with your tanks than I have. I'm kind of liking this little tank. Take it easy.